Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 16. It's called Q. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So yes, we are going to talk about Q, and it's... Q's back, obviously. I mean, that title kind of gives that away. But this is a very big episode, and not just because we know that the Borg are going to become a big deal. I think what was clear when I was watching this is that even this episode, it feels like they are a big deal already. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is only because of their reputation from later when the big episodes come later. This already feels like, no, we know we have something special. We're teasing them out properly, and we're building to it properly.
You get the impression that when this aired originally and you watch this, it still felt like this is something.
Even the start of the episode, there was something just more confident about the way it was constructed. There was something more confident, not only in the opening scenes with Picard and that, but even, in fact, something I was expecting to happen right away, because the first thing we'll talk about is that we get introduced to this new character, this new ensign that's on board, Sonia Gomez. I'm just glancing at her name here. And, she spends some time with Geordi, and she's kind of nervous. She's just joined the ship, and she's kind of, always talking, and he kind of, acknowledges she's always talking, but he's not being a dick. He's he's not acting annoyed or anything like that. He's like, yeah, it's okay, right? You're excited, you're nervous, whatever. And we spend some time getting to know her, and we have a funny little beat where she drops her hot chocolate on Picard, and makes all sorts of promises about doing her best and working to the standard of the ship and yada yada yada, and so it's just an awkward moment, and Geordi kind of smells and goes, well, he's not going to forget that first impression for better or worse. That one's going to stick in his mind.
It's true.
And all I could think during this whole scene, and admittedly, if you were watching this airing originally in 1987 or whatever, right, this wouldn't be the case because you wouldn't know what the episode was going to have. I knew Borg were coming, and I know what Borg are because of reputation. Yep. Right, and I've also seen First Contact, so I've even seen some Borg in action. But the entire time I was watching this, I was like, we're getting to know this character because she's not literally in red, but this is a red shirt, and she's going to be Borgified. I was expecting. I am shocked that by the end of this episode, the Borg didn't nab her and turn her into one of them, an assimilator, I suppose is the word I should use. Possibly yet, but I did look up. She's only in one more episode, and it's the next one, and I'm not expecting the Borg to be in the next one, so I don't think so.
It's kind of strange that they did make such a big deal about her. Like Geordi said, "Oh, yeah, that was a memorable first meeting," and it was for as red shirts go, which is what she felt like. That was particularly memorable.
Well, this is the thing. She doesn't feel like a red shirt in a Star Trek sense. She feels like a red shirt in a modern TV sense, if that makes sense. Whereas in modern TV, we do get introduced to characters enough where you still kind of know in the back of your head, okay, I feel like we're just getting to know them for an episode so that we'll care a little bit when they get killed off, or whatever the case may be. Whereas original Star Trek didn't do that. Original Star Trek, the red shirts were just there and they just died.
They were literally cardboard props.
Yes. And then you have somewhere in the middle Tasha Yar, which is the evolution. And I say that because she is not elevated. What's the opposite of elevate?
Demoted.
Doesn't feel right. I feel like there should be it's not as fun to say as elevate. There should be one that's equally fun to say for going down the way. She was elevated to red shirt because of how she died. She wasn't technically a red shirt, but being killed with a puddle is actually worse than every other red shirt that ever died on Star Trek, and I'm standing by that statement. Anyway, so that's the character's interesting. And the introduction, so if she is just going to be red-shirted, as it were, in next episode, and I think it's interesting that once again, it's the same, it's not red, it's gold she's wearing, but that is notably the colour the engineering department are wearing, which is what Scotty wore, and he was red. Yeah. And I think that's again, I'm not quite sure why engineering and security both have gold. That makes no sense to me. But people have said in comments in the past that all makes sense, and I still don't get it.
Does it?
I don't know. I get everything else with the colours. I don't get why the head of security and the head of engineering are both in gold. If they were both in the same colour, but the people that work for them were in different colours, I'd accept it because they're the heads of the departments. And that's what it means, but they're not. Yeah, we see security and engineering all the time in gold. So
yeah.
Anyway, So yeah, we spent a lot of time introducing to this character. Given that I did kind of look ahead, I peeked ahead and saw that the actress is only in one more episode and it is the next one. I feel like maybe they were just setting her up for next time.
Perhaps, which in itself deserves credit for. That's serious foresight as far as this show goes. As far as Star Trek goes.
Hey, you say that, but they referenced the finale, season 1 finale this episode. They brought up the outpost being attacked, and we even speculated at the time it was the Borg, and it is mentioned. I mean, it's just a small passing thing, but it is there.
No, it is. It is. I just obviously that was a big thing in the end of a season, whereas. Just a few episodes ago, we commented how Riker's dad was kind of offhandedly mentioned the episode before he showed up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it felt like, okay, that was a small little thing, but it felt like more connective than we typically expect from these shows. So this to actually set up what is probably still a red shirt with an entire episode before is quite a considerable step forward as far as this goes.
Assuming there's not more of a story here, like maybe she was meant to be a recurring character and for some reason they changed their minds or fired her or something. I mean, that's always possible. I mean, there may be a story behind it, and that's fair, but I really felt that we're setting her up to be the victim by the end of the episode, and that never happened. She just kind of disappeared after the first 10 minutes, but she'd got a decent amount of time in that first 10 minutes, which isn't actually a complaint, bizarrely, because I actually enjoyed all the scenes she was in. I wasn't sitting going, what we doing, wasted time with this new character. It wasn't until later I realised it wasn't super relevant to the episode, but I never felt in hindsight that, because if anything, I think the one thing it succeeds in the context of the episode is because she's so fun and bubbly and hopeful about everything that it contrasts nicely with just the absolute terror of the Borg once we actually get to the darker stuff.
Yeah.
So
because it gets there.
It does achieve that at the very least, and I think that's good. This episode's fantastic. This might be the best episode of the show so far. We said that twice earlier this season. They have competition. I think there's an argument between this and Measure of a Man. I think they're both.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not 100% confident to say right now that this is better than that.
I think Measure of a Man is a great episode and kind of showing what Star Trek is good at. And Star Trek is good at raising moral questions and kind of debating them out. And even if you don't necessarily disagree with the outcome or how they get to the outcome, it makes you think. It makes the characters argue for and against something, and you find yourself having good thought processes and thinking about it and yada yada yada. And in the case of that episode specifically, some really sweet sentiments and Picard sticking up for Data and all these beats. I think this episode is really exciting in a context of, hey, we can actually do really good plots as well. Like, I mean, and that's not to say that we've had no good plots or no good episodes, because we have, but this is the first episode that goes in. Obviously the Borg are the one thing from Next Gen that are kind of well known, right? Like original series introduced Klingons and Vulcans and Romulans, and they're known to varying degrees. I'd say Romulans probably the least so out of the three, but they're all relatively big ideas of Star Trek that are known, right?
They are, but weirdly, I would say it's Next Gen that defined Klingons as to what people think of them, even though original series introduced them.
Oh, that's fair, yeah, because they've got a main Klingon character, so it makes sense that it would become even more solidified. So, it evolved things from the original series, but the Borg are the one big new sort of race that they really kind of made like a household name. And I'm sure there's plenty of, Ferengi, for example, were new in Next Gen. And,
but I'll be honest, I think I've seen a picture of a Ferengi before I'd started this, but I couldn't have named you that.
Oh no, I'm just before people in the comments say, I'm just pointing out that yes, there are other races they've invented that have lasted, but I'm just saying that the Borg are the ones that have actually went beyond the show, and people know or at least heard of the Borg. They have a vague idea of the Borg.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the Ferengi. There is, I'm someone who is, maybe I wasn't always into Trek itself, but generally speaking, nerd pop culture, whatever. And I'd seen, memes using Ferengi, but I couldn't have ever named you what it was. Whereas, if you show me a picture of a Borg, sure, I know what that is.
Yeah, the Borg just have a legacy that's kind of lived outside the show, and went on as a kind of Voyager kind of does something similar to Worf. There's kind of a Borg-esque character. I don't think it's not as clear cut as she's just the Borg, but there's a Borg-esque character in the main cast.
It's playing with that same sort of trope here.
Yeah. So, but obviously before we even get to the Borg, we get to Q, because the Borg don't come until maybe halfway through. We get Q, who appears. Picard's going to change his hot chocolate stained outfit, and he goes into the turbo lift. He wants to go to his quarters, and instead of spitting him out of his quarters, it spits him out in a shuttle, which isn't even attached to the ship. It's Q using his.
Yeah, it's not even remotely nearby.
Yeah, he's. We never actually know how far away he is, but miles, thousands of miles. Who knows?
Outside of the scanning range.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But Q's there, and it's him using his powers again. And I'm sure we probably compared him to Mxyzptlk back earlier in season 1.
If we didn't, we missed a beat there.
No, I think we definitely did, and I remember doing it. But what I thought was notable here, just going back to that comparison, if you don't know who Mxyzptlk is, if you're not like a DC Comics or Superman fan, he's this fifth dimensional, and the word I'm going to use here as the reason why I'm bringing it up is because in this episode, the word imp is thrown around, and that is what Mixie is. Mixie is referred to as an imp.
Yes.
So that really stuck out to me, to the point where I'm actually convinced the writers know exactly, like, I feel like the people on the writing staff in this know they've got a Mxyzptlk adjacent character.
I think we did have this conversation before, because I think we said that the exact same thing whenever he popped up one of the other times, of they know because there was some sort of not quite exactly on the nose reference, but enough that it was like, okay, it's too coincidental.
Sure, yeah. I think
we had that before.
I think this solidified it, and we have Q trying to convince Picard that he wants to join the crew. And again, they remember continuity, because Picard says, hey, last time, we beat you and you promised you would never interfere with the ship again. And he's like, well, we're not on the ship, we're on a shuttle, far away from the ship, so I've kept my promise. So again, that's continuity. When they do get back out of the ship, because, Picard eventually says, well, hey, yeah, if you want to have a debate and actually try and convince me of something, let's do it, back in the ship, let us hear it out and we'll properly listen to it. So he just kind of snaps his fingers, and they're on the ship, they're in the bar area, and we have Riker actually references the first time they met, which was episode 1. You put us on trial for humanity. They reference when he tried to recruit Riker. So again, all this continuity is being referenced. It may not be super serialized like a modern TV show, but they are actually they're putting a lot of effort into remembering things and actually bringing things up again.
Which, let's be honest, is more than we can actually say for some modern TV shows. Look at you, Flash and Supergirl.
Yeah, those are different beasts though, because they're actually trying to be serialized and still forgetting things, which is a whole special classification in and of itself. So yeah, but a bit of a plot twist here for me. I don't know if you were expecting this, but Guinan. So before Picard even comes back to the ship, Guinan's just kind of looking around. She's having a weird feeling. She's kind of, and this is the first time as well, I think, we've ever just cut to her on her own. It's always been, someone else is in the bar area, they're having a drink, they're talking to her, getting advice, whatever.
Yeah.
And we cut to her, and she's just on her own, and she sort of senses something. She's looking out, and she calls the bridge. And notably, even the writers put a line in here where Riker says, "Oh, I don't remember you ever calling the bridge before, Guinan." And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, she's never done that before. And she's like, "Is there anything weird?" And Riker looks over at Worf and he's like, "Anything?" And he's like, "No, readings are normal." He's like, "Why? What's up?" He's like, "Oh, just a feeling. Probably nothing." And it couldn't help it. So Guinan joined the cast as a recurring character this season. That was a season 2, episode 1 kind of onwards thing. It's not been every episode, but she's been kind of around.
She's popped in and out.
Yeah, every 2 or 3 more or less. And if they had this planned, that she was going to have this backstory that we kind of discover here, that she knows who Q is. Q is there, and Guinan sort of pops up. I actually laughed a little bit, but if I have any complaints about the episode, is that Whoopi Goldberg standing with her claw formation, waiting to attack. It was kind of making me giggle a little bit. But Q references that she dealt with them, or he dealt with her hundreds of years ago. So Guinan's old. Guinan, who I assumed was human.
Yeah, I think he says 200 years ago at this point, but even that still is okay.
And I think even before we get to the mythology that we're adding with the Borg and stuff, the idea that, they mentioned multiple times in this episode, the reason why Q's kind of given them these tests and wants to sort of talk to them and join the crew is that you're kind of venturing beyond into new parts of the galaxy that the human race, the Federation as a whole, almost has never been in, and you're genuinely going to be discovering new things. But Guinan's people, where she comes from, they have been out here. They come from further out. So I think it's very interesting that we have the core Federation starting to go outwards and outwards, and we have the Enterprise doing that. But there's actually other people who have already travelled further from the other direction, who have already integrated into the Federation world, into the Starfleet world, and
that is interesting.
That is kind of fascinating.
It's funny because you say you didn't really know this was a thing, and I didn't think I did until I started watching. The scene happen. I was like, I knew this, and I don't know how I knew this. Obviously, I've just seen it at some point, but. Once it started, I was like, yeah, I kind of just, it was in the back of my brain somewhere. It kind of just triggered.
Yeah, I said, when he casually, first of all, her knowing who Q was just like, wait, what? And then casually mentioning, 200 years ago, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, Guinan's got a bit more going on here than I was expecting.
It was when he called her an imp. I feel like I've seen that before. I don't know why or when, but...
And... so he calls her the imp, but of course we think of him as an imp because we're thinking of Mixapelic, which makes me think that her race is on some kind of similar level. I mean, she several times in the episode when they ask her about Q and the Q Collective, who we did hear about before, she says, some of the Q Collective are actually, bordering on decent, and they've kicked Q out because he's a bit of a renegade, a child, whatever you want to call him.
That was rather polite.
And yeah, but Picard never kind of flinches when he finds out that she's been around this long. So clearly he knew that she wasn't, just human from Earth.
Yeah.
They've known at least to some extent who she is, even if they don't know about her past and the fact that she knows Q. So this was interesting, especially since the last time Q was here was mid-late season 1. That episode we try to get Riker. So it does make sense that this has not come up yet because Q's not appeared, and since season 1, and Guinan's not only been here since the start of this season. So continuity. It's all adding up. It's actually feeling a lot like comic book continuity where. All your arcs are kind of on your own, and even in these days, it would have been single issues. But things were remembered, and things would be important later whenever the writer wanted to pull on them.
A lot of the time, things don't really matter, and they just kind of, that was a cool story. But then every so often, it'll call back to it and build on something.
Yeah,
go, okay, this is better now.
Basically, a writer, down the line will say, I want to use this episode, that episode, and that episode, and use all those histories to inform this episode to make it better. And then all of a sudden, those feel more important, and we have this sense of continuity where the world is kind of moving forward and thriving, even if it's not.
Yeah. Even if it wasn't the intention in the original episode, the fact that it's done here makes them retroactively feel part of the story very organically.
Absolutely. And that's actually how a lot of TV is written, believe it or not.
I know.
TV is largely made up, more or less, as it goes along.
Even some of the highest profile serialized shows, famously Breaking Bad, in its final season, there's the flash forward stuff. They didn't know how they were getting there. They didn't know what they were doing. So they put that in and went, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's a method of writing TV, and some people are very good at it. I mean, I do obviously appreciate when they do have things plotted out. Look at Mr. Robot right now, which was clearly very planned from the start.
It's too meticulous not to have been.
But there's a genius to both in doing both well. Doing one over the other is not necessarily the better option, but they can both have good results. So
we just mentioned two very well regarded shows in both styles there.
Absolutely. So big things here. Big things. Immediately big things, and there's kind of a smugness, because Q is basically saying, hey, like, you're about to face things you've never faced. You need me. You need my help. Hell, I'll even give up my powers. I'll be as weak and feeble as you, but you need my help. And they're like, no, we don't need your help. And Riker's, Q calls them smug and arrogant, and I agree with Picard. They're actually just being very proper and not giving in to his weird demands and whatnot. But Riker does almost get a little smug. Like, he's got a smirk in his face when he says he doesn't need him. And it just does
feel rather Riker, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. But Riker, I think, is just always a little bit smug. There's just a little bit of smugness in Riker.
Yeah, there is. It's always there.
So, So what does he do? He slingshots them to a part of the galaxy they've not been in. I think it was like 7,000 light years or something like that, he said.
It was far.
Yeah. And, okay, new part of space. Where are we? What are we doing? And Q kind of disappears. He kind of pops in here or there for the odd little one-off comment, but for the most part, he's gone until later. And very quickly, there's a vessel up ahead. Nuclear vessels, to quote Chekhov. There's a vessel up ahead. And I can't remember the exact sequence of events here, because, at one point Guinan goes into the room. I think it's after they actually see the ship, the cube, the Borg cube, and she actually knows what they're called. She says they're the Borg, and they have completely ravaged planets and taken everything as raw material, including the people. That's how the Borg work. They take people and resources. And right away, there's some interesting things here where, Data's doing his readings and his scans, and it's like, well, there's not really life forms on board. There's also not really a bridge or not really any of these things. And I'm about to praise something here. There's something I'm about to... So, the Borg is a concept that I've always, felt interested enough in. But, this is the first time... And I did see First Contact a long time ago, but it's been a while. I don't really, recall
this
much
is the first time with context.
Yeah. And one of the things I love, right? One of my favourite things of all time is the Terminator. And just recently, I talked at length about the Terminator movies because the new one was coming out, so we did all the reviews on the sci-fi movie podcast that we do called the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. And Terminator 1 is my favourite of the two Terminator movies, and there's only two that matter. That's the important information. And the reason why it's my favourite of the two, even though Terminator 2 is fantastic, is because I would describe that movie as cyberpunk horror. And there's not a lot of cyberpunk horror in the world. And almost immediately, this started to feel intimidating. It started to feel like this is soulless and that there's no personality. And what do I like about Terminator? I like the idea that it's soulless. I like the idea that even Skynet itself doesn't have a face or a voice, doesn't care to have a face or a voice, doesn't need one.
It doesn't even have an opinion.
And the reason why I'm about to praise this is because one of the things that I absolutely tore Terminator Salvation apart for, even though it's mildly better than the one before and the one after it, is that it really bugged me how in that movie, which is set in the future when Skynet's in control and it's got its army of robots and everything else, is that all of its base still had doors with keypads, and it was still very much designed as if it had humans in mind. And I'm like, why does this have this? This shouldn't look recognizable. It should feel like just a mass of parts. And this Borg ship looks like that. It feels like that. And even once we go on board it, it's still, even though there's still some walkways because they still have humanoids that are walking around, it feels so unhuman.
Yeah, I get that.
And
I've actually been reading some sci-fi books recently by it's called Tchaikovsky, and the first book in the series is called Children of Time. And just to get really brief, humans try and seed a planet with life, and they create a virus to speed up evolution essentially. And they put some apes, they terraform the planet, they put some apes down there, and they plan to release the virus into the apes and speed them up. Shit goes wrong. We cut ahead a few millennia, and the virus infected spiders instead. And the whole thing is, even though they evolved on a human-style evolutionary track like the virus was designed to, they're so different that you can't even comprehend some of the things that they're doing because they're spiders, right? And again, this is kind of remind me of that in the sense that it's hard to comprehend any sort of logic or system to the way the Borg cube is set out because it's so alien.
I love just the mesh of metal and pipes and cables. It's so grungy and dark. I love the because obviously very quickly because the ship's there, it kind of does a quick. Because they're like, oh, they've not raised any shields and they're not readying weapons as far as we can tell. But quite quickly it gets kind of intimidating, and then all of a sudden, because Guinan explains how dangerous they are and so on, they try to speak to it, doesn't work. One just magically beams on board, and the reason why I say magically is that because they're not supposed to just be able to beam through the Enterprise's shields. They're not supposed to be able to just do that.
Feels magical, even though know it's okay. They're just that advanced.
Yeah. So obviously, beaming in the show is a normal thing, but they shouldn't be able to just do it the way they do it here, where they can just get back past all the defenses and just beam onto the engineering deck. And this Borg just appears there, and it, obviously it's humanoid, but you've got the dark kind of pipes and cables and things that are all around it, and yada yada yada. And it starts like scanning things, and Geordi like calls down for security and gets Picard down there. Picard tries talking to it. It doesn't ever talk back. It doesn't care to talk back. It has no reason to communicate. It doesn't care. It's just going to do its thing. And eventually it's like, okay, Worf, try and subdue this invader. Or actually, first of all, you red shirt security guy, you try and subdue the invader. He gets thrown across the room. If I have a minor nitpick about the staging of this scene, it's that the direction he gets thrown in and where he lands means he should have actually went right through Picard and Geordi, because where they were standing, because they're kind of like in front of him when the camera cuts to that side. It's a minor thing. I don't care, but the scene's fantastic. Like I was so wrapped in everything at this point. I didn't care. Like I was.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically Worf, fires the phaser at it, maybe on stun, and then Picard sort of says, like, Worf, use anything, any means necessary, which I assume means it's been set to kill. Like he's turned it all the way up, and he fires it at him, and it does put the Borg drone down. He lands, and then within seconds, a second Borg drone just beams onto the ship and starts continuing exactly what the previous one was doing, because he was at the computer just sort of scanning and doohicking and whatnot, and he just keeps continuing. What was interesting is that this one, so Worf again tries to fire on the second drone, and all of a sudden there's a shield that's kind of like always shielding wherever the blast is going to hit. It's like it's learning. It's like, okay, the last one got hit with this beam, we're coming prepared. And it's just so methodical, and as soon as the thing's finished doing what it's doing, he just phases away, and then the one that was lying down phases away as well, and so that's it. It's like they were never here. And everyone's like, that was creepy as shit.
What the hell just happened?
They were probing her ship, they were learning things, and it's at this point where they go to the ready room with Guinan, and they're asking her questions. She's explaining some stuff and how her homeworld was, and she wasn't there personally, but she's heard that her homeworld was completely taken by the Borg, and she's kind of a survivor of her race. Obviously, there's a lot of them still around because they were all spread out through the galaxy, but the bulk population, the homeworld is gone because of the Borg, and like as they're having this conversation and they're debating what to do and how to fight it, if anything, I think Q probably jumps in here for a second. He definitely does later on, because he does the thing where he disappears out of the chair and the chair's spinning after he disappears, which I liked.
Because of course,
nice little touch.
He's a theatrical little bastard, isn't he?
Oh, he absolutely is. And he's trying to convince Picard that he needs him. There's a message comes in. It's like, hey, something's coming through the comms, and we get this robotic voice just saying, we have determined that your ship is not capable of fighting ours. Do not try to resist or defend yourself. And that's it. Matter of fact, no interest. Again, why would it want to negotiate? Why would it want to gloat? Why would it want to do anything?
It's not got opinions and feelings. It's just fact.
It just is, yeah. That's what's so beautiful about it.
It's not making a threat here. It's just a statement.
Yeah. And I love it. I love it so much. And Picard's like, okay, you know what? So they continue their ready room meeting a little bit. And even though Guinan's against it, Guinan's like, no, this is crazy. You can't do this. Picard's like, no, Riker getting away team ready. And he takes Data and Worf. They go over. And when they arrive, even though there's rows and rows of Borg, which, by the way, I like the set, by the way, first of all. You felt the scale. Even though they clearly had like one bit of a walkway and the rest of it was,
yeah, but it still looked good.
Yeah. They just don't care. And Riker points out, like, well, either they don't see it as a threat or they don't even notice us, because when they're not being used as actual drone like soldiers, they're just plugged into the wall, and their collective mind is running the ship. It's like the entire collective is making all the decisions. It's not single minds, and even Troy kind of points that out the first time it talks to them. She's like, hey, there's no individual minds to read. It's all one.
It's just one entity.
Which also is very efficient, because there's no time to like debate anything. It's just everything just makes its choice. Like the Borg make their choice as it is.
It's kind of impressive they don't have like a an intel. Like even when you're making a decision as a human with a brain, and you're thinking about doing something, you go, oh, should I do this? Should I not? You have a few seconds of
Oh, sure.
in a debate.
But that's
So
that's the other part here. This though, right? Is that they're basically a machine, so they're just doing it in a pure cold logical way, as opposed to
just look at the numbers and go,
yeah,
this is the outcome.
yeah. Because we have doubts, we have things to weigh up, and we have feelings, and the Borg have none of this.
Yeah.
And they have a nursery. We have a nursery set, and there's like babies who, as soon as they're born,
Kind of creepy as shit.
yeah, get their Borg eye thing on, and they're they're assimilating.
I'm not going because they're like, oh, they're born organic and then added onto, and I'm like, are they born or are they stolen? Like, are they stolen from elsewhere? Obviously they're born still elsewhere, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough information yet. I would guess stolen, but
yeah, because I know Riker says they're born like this, and the implication felt like they were born here on the Borg ship, and
I feel like even if he is assuming that, he is just assuming, because how could he possibly know that at this point?
But,
yeah.
No, it just made me wonder, and I'm like,
I think the point is that just that anyone who has a Borg was born organic.
Yeah.
And is assimilated. It's just that some of them are babies that they're taking, I guess. But maybe maybe it's next season we'll see there's like a weird like demonic nursery where they're actually keeping women prisoner.
Very interesting, like with this asexual reproduction system in a way, that it can create a biological life to then assimilate into itself.
Yeah, I'm going to guess they can't create life, and it is all the babies are stolen. That'd be my guess, unless I'm told otherwise.
That was my assumption, because that's why they expand, right? That's why they're looking for more. But I don't know. I wasn't certain enough.
Yeah. Big Cube looks great. Everything about the set design, the mood, the music, even in this episode, I feel like it was a bit more sinister sounding than it usually has been.
Yeah.
It felt like all those cheery, light-hearted episodes of Star Trek. It's like, oh yeah, that's not even the same show at this point. Like, what this is?
It does feel completely different.
Yeah, this feels intimidating. And eventually Picard's like, okay, everyone get back now immediately, because he even says to O'Brien, like, if at any point the signals of our away team start to waver, you beam them back immediately. You don't hesitate, just bring them back.
Yeah, it's the point where they're like, the ship's just repairing itself, where they're like, right, bring them back now.
Yeah, because they zoom in and we can see like the metal bars sort of reform and do whatever else, and it's actually somewhere in the middle here. When the Borg ship kind of attacks them and kind of like slices out like a cylinder of the ship, like it sort of slices in and like cuts it out, almost like if you had a cookie cutter and like pulled out the part that you cut, and it's like part, and as it was coming out, I was thinking, is that like different decks of the ship? Those like sort of levels I'm seeing in it, because it comes out the saucer section, and then Picard says, oh, like how many casualties, Worf? And he's like, well, there was 18 people in that section of the ship, and now they're missing. So 18 people got killed. Like 18 people on the ship got killed. So there is weight, like to not just to the Borg as a threat, because I kind of bought them anyway. But there's weight to Q's tests where, because Picard, the second time they have the meeting and he shows up for a little bit, Riker's like mad at him. He's like, oh, people, are part of our crew are dead, and you've done this by bringing us here. And Picard says, hey, Q, if this is an illusion, if this is one of your games, tell us now, because we're mourning.
It's not funny anymore.
Yeah, we're mourning 18 dead, and he's like, nope, this is real. And from Q's perspective, you get the genuine feel, as much as he's very playful, that he sees this as necessary. You need to know how serious this is.
He's making a point.
Yeah. And so they try to run at the end. There's like max warp speed. Let's just run, and no matter what, the Borg ship is catching up to them. It's
kind of terrifying just watching this cube
get closer. Yeah, just a cube, just the inanimate object kind of idea of it.
It's just like saying, it's the way it's not no design philosophy as. A ship has this. It has an aesthetic design for whatever reason, even though it doesn't necessarily. Once you're in orbit, you don't need to be aerodynamic because there's no resistance anymore.
Obviously, yeah.
But they still kind of look sleek in that way because we have a sense of style, whereas this is just it all just grows outwards. It could have just been a circle.
Yeah, it could have been a sphere even.
Yeah,
but it's a square. I guess it's because when you're dealings in ones and zeros, a square seems more fitting than a sphere, right? Because it just has hard edges. It has a simple, defined three dimensions as opposed to. I mean, I'm sure the Borg can calculate exactly how they make a sphere if they want to, but like,
I doubt it would even be that hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
efficiency.
Get why,
it's efficient. Just quick.
I get why a cube, but it's again, it just adds to that just how alien this is, and because we've seen a lot of alien species in Star Trek, and a lot of them have these little quirks that this is different, but the commonality is mostly there, whereas this is just so different.
I know it's supposed to be kind of like come from the same sort of like ancestry, but like the Romulans and the Vulcans, they're basically the same thing. Like, in terms of visuals, so it's interesting. So they have a big chase, and essentially get out of it because Q starts popping up in the bridge. And Picard says, okay, this was all to make me admit that I need you, so I'm admitting that I need you, get us out of here. So they only survive, admittedly the only reason why they're there in the first place is because of Q, but they only survive because Q, uses his powers to snap them back to where they were to begin with. And when Picard goes to see Guinan later in the episode, at the end, it ends in this really somber note. She points out that now that they know you exist, they know that there's civilization out this way, and they know that you're, represent a whole world of people. They're going to be coming. Like now they've got a scent, essentially, to compare it to a dog, they've got a scent. And I felt this, because I think what's great about this episode is that the entire thing works on its own as an introduction to the Borg. They seem very interesting. I actually love the budget for it, if that makes sense, because I think that if you're almost too sleek with the Borg, it will look almost too hokey. I think there's something special about just how grungy it feels because it can only have so much money spent on it.
It kind of it gives this feel of scavenged, right? The Borg just used whatever they had at hand.
I think if you make it too sleek and too professional looking, it almost takes away from their image. It's kind of like how part of what makes Texas Chainsaw Massacre such an effective little shitty movie is because it looks so rough and it feels so grimy. It adds to the whole thing, and I think that's kind of what I mean with the budget here with the Borg. And budget, obviously I'm sure at the time this was a high budget for a TV show, but that 80s TV budget is nothing compared to,
today's TV budget.
Today's TV budget, then's movie budget, what you want to compare it to. So... No, I really like that. But what I like about the whole episode as a whole is that not only is it a great introduction to the Borg, it knows that it's just an introduction. This is clearly setting up for the future. This is not the end of the Borg. This wasn't like we have a one-and-done story where we meet the Borg, there's a crisis, and we solve the crisis. This is to scare the shit out of you to know that the Borg are coming back.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between, going back to the original series where you had, Klingons for the most part, Romulans, even Khan. It was like, hey, they're just stories, and then we happen to revisit them later. Whereas this is this is the start of something, and it's the start of something as a long game as well, because even at the end here, they're not going to be on us straight away. It's going to take time, but they are coming. Yeah,
because at one point when they first arrive in the new area, the new sector, Picard says, how far away are we? And I think Data says, at max warp speed, it'll take us 2 years and 6 months to get to the nearest starbase. So not even back to where they were, back to the nearest outpost of civilization that they have established.
And don't get me wrong, we can clearly see that the Borg can travel faster than them because they will catch it. But that's still going to take them some sort of time.
Well, I'm pretty sure the most well-known two-parter of the entire show is the end of season 3 and at the start of season 4. So at the very least, we're getting at the end of season 3.
But let's assume, hypothetically, we're traveling in roughly real time, right? Mm-hmm. That's a little over a year from where we are now. They're traveling faster.
That's just under half of what it would have taken them.
Yeah, so it kind of stands to reason.
Yeah, that does. Again, barring the difference of what the edge of the... But then again, we did hear throughout this episode that they are about to venture into unexplored areas, so maybe they actually were quite close to the starbase, so...
Maybe, yeah.
That makes some sense. I love this episode. I always assumed I'd like the Borg. I feel this dark science fiction, which by the way is a very different science fiction to what Trek has typically done up until this point. I think whenever Trek's dabbled here or there a little bit in like horror, but not like in a
we've
super
had like
big
the
way.
odd like empty ship.
Yeah, it's had a bit creepiness to it or whatever, but this is immediately this idea of this this techno horror, this cyberpunk horror that
galactic boogeyman.
Yeah, and it really worked for me. This has me excited for future Borg stuff.
I kind of like as well that we're not all doing. Don't know, I'm sure there's something at some point, but it's not all immediately. This is our fault coming back to haunt us.
Oh sure, yeah.
It's like no. There's just something out there that is technologically like this, and it's coming for us now.
Yeah.
As opposed to we were talking about Terminator earlier with Skynet, where it was kind of like self-inflicted.
To a point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a point. Yeah, this is just out there. Unless it turns out this is V'ger again. That's evolved a bit.
Yeah. For some reason in my head, there's something in one of the other shows that does kind of go, well, we might have had something to do with it, but I don't know if I'm just imagining that.
Hey, we've got plenty of time to get possible. No one spoil the Borg backstory. We'll discover that throughout the show.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to it though. This sold me extremely well in the Borg. The just out how unhuman and how automated the whole thing feels, and cold.
It's
all
just
that.
the raw rationale of, oh hey, here's all the scavenge bits that are just there, and they're not in any neat system order. They're just thrown on as they fit there, so that's where they go.
Yeah.
It kind of works so well.
So no, I can't say enough nice things. It's not surprising this is one of the longest discussions we've had so far. Yeah. I think Measure of a Man was equally about this length, and I think it's Star Trek's at its best when it's making us, obviously we're talking a lot about design here, we're talking a lot about possibilities, but when we're talking about possibilities, we're talking about ideas, and we're talking about what things can mean in the context of future stories. Star Trek is at its best when it's posing a lot of questions and introducing a lot of ideas, and it makes a lot of sense that an episode like this does better than, say, Riker's dad's got some hockey samurai gear on and they're going to fight like gladiators.
That was fun though. In a very different way.
Yeah, in a so bad it's good way. But not...
Exactly, and I kind of love that.
This is actually good though.
It is, yeah.
I'll always take good over so bad it's good. Although
I
obviously,
I won't say always, because sometimes I'm in the mood for so bad it's good.
Okay, sure, but like, good is far more enticing. So
it is.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But now, admittedly, I think we have peaked for the season. Although we don't actually have as much left of the season because this season's a little bit shorter because of a writer's strike that took place in 1988. And the reason why I know that, even before looking up like anything, is because I know that from the Halloween 4 writer's commentary.
Of all the things.
I know. I remember the writer in the commentary saying that he had to finish the script by a certain date because the writer's strike was coming in, so he had to quickly finish it off so that it was done and they could go shoot.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? So I'll tell you what's coming next time. So we only have 22 episodes this season. This was episode 16, so we have 6 left. So episode 17 is called The Samaritan Snare. With Picard away for routine surgery, oh dear, the Enterprise responds to an apparent distress call from a Pac-led vessel.
I think the biggest thing this episode needs to answer is, if it was so routine, why couldn't Pulaski just do it? Is she that bad at her job?
She's on vacation. She wasn't in this episode either.
No, she wasn't.
On vacation.
She had some shore leave.
Well, she's getting replaced again at the start of season 3, so maybe I don't know.
She is that bad at her job.
Is she? Oh, she's in the next one, yeah. But I think Mama Crusher is back season 3.
It's just what we all need.
I like her well enough. She's better than Wesley. I
mean, yeah. Do you know what? I think I like her less because she's connected to Wesley.
I like her more than Pulaski, I think.
No, I do.
She has more chemistry with everyone.
No, I agree with all of these things. I think, though, in my head, I just have just an extra dislike of her because every time I see her or she's mentioned, she's automatically reminding me that Wesley exists.
Well, don't worry. I don't think Wesley's around that much longer.
Yeah, but I still know he exists.
All right. That has been Q-Hugh. Episode 16, Star Trek The Next Generation. Let us know what you thought of the episode in comments below. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell on YouTube. Make sure you get the notifications. If you want to support us and everything we do and keep all the content coming, you can do that by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Helps more people find us. You can do it financially over on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month and get bonus episodes of some of our movie podcasts and outtakes and things like that. You also, of course, at the $5 tier, get early access to a bunch of stuff, including these Star Trek reviews. So go and have a look and see if you're interested. Otherwise, check out other content we have. If you like classic TV show discussions, me and Tara are reviewing Twilight Zone. We're by the time I think it's hard because we're a little bit ahead in recordings, but we've started recording season 2. I don't know if if we'll be on season 2 when this goes up,
but it's coming soon.
Yeah, but we've started recording season 2, so yeah, go check out that. We've also been reviewing Firefly, which is not as old, admittedly, but we're almost done with that, so go and have a look at that too. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, guys, and to everyone but Connor, live long and prosper.